Welcome to a Cicero Talk. I've got a rather curious object here. Some of you might recognize this. It's a nail. Or actually, it's a copy of a nail. It's not the real thing, but it's an exact replica of a Roman nail of the 1st century AD. And it's not just any old nail. This one's extra special, because this one is an exact copy of one of the 3 nails the Romans supposedly used at the crucifixion, Jesus Christ. As we know, the Romans drove one of these through Christ's ankles and one each through his hands. Now, there have been a number of saints who've shown the signs of Christ's passion, his bloody wounds, on their own bodies. Spontaneous bleeding. We call that stigmata. One of the most famous of those saints is Padre Pio. And all the pictures, images, paintings, statues you see of Christ on the cross, you always see one of these going right through his hand. Now, don't try this at home, but if you really want to suspend a grown man by his hands and make sure that he doesn't fall down, you shouldn't do this, because the hand is just not strong enough. Eventually it'll rip apart and the body will fall down. So what the Romans probably did was drive the nail through the wrist. And that's a safe way to guarantee that the body won't fall down. Now, the Romans might have been brutal in many ways, but they certainly were no fools. Still, the saintly stigmata always show up in the palms of the hands. Well, there's a riddle for you. In the 4th century AD, Helen, the mother of the Emperor Constantine, went on a pilgrimage to the Holy Land. She went to Jerusalem and she discovered lots of stuff. She discovered the true cross. She discovered the 3 nails. She even discovered the crown of thorns. And she discovered the little plaque that went up on the cross with the 4 letters, INRI. Jesus Nazarenus, Rex Judaeorum, Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews. And she brought all that stuff back with her to Rome and showed it to her son, who was very impressed. And he said, "Mother, I'm very impressed." And he said, "I'm going to build you a church just for you, and you can put all your wonderful stuff in there on display for the faithful." And there is still a church today in Rome at that site. It's called the Basilica di Santa Croce in Jerusalem. The Basilica of the Holy Cross in Jerusalem, and it's in full view of St. John Lateran, San Giovanni Laterano. Now, the object I'm holding here, this copy of the true nail, I found this one somewhere in the late 70s, in a dark corner, discarded, forgotten, in a cellar of my former grammar school. And it came attached with a certificate. And the certificate states that it had been bought in the summer of 1913 in the Basilica di Santa Croce in Jerusalem in Rome. Now, I don't know who bought it, but in those days my grammar school used to be run by priests. So I imagine that one of the priests, one of the teaching staff, went on a holiday, on a vacation, went to Rome, went to the church and bought a souvenir, a saintly souvenir, with a certificate. And the certificate says of this key, "Ad motum fuisse sacro clavo." It has been brought near the original. And I imagine that they actually touched. Now, it was 1913, the summer of 1913. The world was completely different from our world today. Europe was still ruled by a multitude of kings and emperors. There was still a sultan in Istanbul. There was a Tsar in Russia. And amongst them, they ruled the rest of the world. The summer of 13 was a time when the world was sleepwalking to the brink of the greatest war they'd ever known. And this priest went on a holiday and brought back a souvenir. And in those days, this must have been very impressive. The Pope in 1913 was still a prisoner of the Lateran. Mussolini was still a young man. In 1929, Mussolini would free the Pope and create Vatican City as we know it. But then the 20th century happened. Wars and revolutions. And 60s came along, and the Vatican Council. And the world changed, and the church changed along with it. And things like these, saintly souvenirs with certificates of authenticity, no longer mattered. And they were discarded, put away in dark corners and forgotten. And then I came along, I found it, and I still have it, I cherish it. It's on my desk. I look at it every day, and sometimes I pick it up and I hold it. And whenever I touch this replica, it feels like I'm touching history itself. It brings back all those stories, kings and queens and empresses, of popes, of worldviews, of times gone by, of Roman legionaries. It's like history comes alive by touching this curious object. Because never forget, history is like a never-ending story. And whoever wrote its script made sure that everything connects to everything else. See you next time on the Cicero Company channel.